Eventually, I got the word that he went to his family's factory and he hung himself. And when they checked his brain, he was in stage 4 of CTE, and that's why he couldn't talk.
Hmm. Wow.
So that was, and so I felt guilty. I felt responsible, and I think that's when I hit rock bottom right there.
Welcome back to Coats in Conversation. I'm your host, Kendrique Coats, a therapist for athletes and couples in Illinois, and also an athlete mental health advisor for the Illinois High School Association. This podcast episode may be the most controversial one that I've had thus far. We talk with former USA bobsledding athlete William Person. In the first part of this episode, we talk about the current pending lawsuit that William has with the USA Bobsled Federation. We talk about CTE, which is chronic traumatic encephalopathy, which is a progressive brain disease caused by repetitive brain injuries. William shares his experiences going through this and seeing other athletes not only struggle with their own mental health, but other athletes who have taken their lives. Towards the middle to end part of this conversation, we talk about how some of his racial experiences being a former USA athlete impacted his mental health. And then we talk about a lot of the work that William is currently involved in to not only continue helping himself, but to help other athletes who have experienced these traumatic brain injuries. This one is it hits home because I've had my own experiences. And so a lot of the things that William talks about in this episode, I can relate to. And I'm sure there are more athletes out there that can also relate to these things. But there's always that stigma of talking about mental health and the fear that if an athlete speaks up, they will not get the playing time that they want or deserve. Be sure to like and subscribe to Coats in Conversation on all podcasting platforms to be the first to catch new episodes. We are going to have a conversation today that might be controversial in some people's eyes. You made it all the way to the Olympic training team, Team USA, a dream many athletes have. But now instead of enjoying the legacy of what you've accomplished, you've had to battle some of the mental and physical health issues that have come with that. So you're currently suing the United States Bobsledding Federation. Mm-hmm. As you go through this, what's the motivation that continues your fight towards something as big as this?
Well, I asked them for two things. Number one, that's non-negotiable. And I said the same thing to the judge. They have to warn the new generation before they get in that sled, not just say the word concussion. So now they're starting to play around with the word concussion a little bit. So they said now they're warning them with the word concussion. No, but what they don't understand is, for me and for the rest of my teammates, concussion means like in about 3 or 4 years when you leave the sport, you're not going to recognize your friends or family, some of them. Every day when I wake up, I have to look at a calendar to figure out what the day is and what month we're in. Every day, it's like Groundhog's Day for me. So I asked for medical to make sure everybody has what they need. And so those two things I asked for: take care of the guys who need help, figure out what this is and help us, and warn a new generation. I didn't say, give me $5 million. I didn't make any personal requests for myself. And one of the reasons was because I thought I would be dead before this case got to court, because I was suffering so bad. Like there was weeks where I just laid on the floor, not in the bed, not on the couch, on the floor. And so this thing is slow, it's progressive, and it's ugly. And if you look at all these NFL players and our veterans coming back committing suicide, trust me, I know exactly why they did it. Yeah.
We'll get into that a little bit later, more in detail as far as the concussions, the CTE. But I want to go back from the start of all of this. What did the Olympics symbolize for you when you were coming up as a kid?
Well, man, my dad, he had this idea that I was going to be an Olympic athlete, and all my teachers and everybody always said it. But in my heart, I really didn't believe it, because I was a runner. And I wasn't always the fastest runner. Like, there was people kicking my butt, man. Like, I wasn't the fastest. And but I was in a bunch. I was up there, but it's always a new guy show up, like, where he come from, So I never thought it would be a reality. And matter of fact, as my track and field career was phasing down, that's when bobsled showed up. And so, like, you're not going to find many bobsledders faster than me. That's just not a thing. So, I mean, it was a nice, smooth transition for me.
Hmm. It
Yeah.
reminds me of that. You sent me an article, and we'll go into that some more too. But sledhead, and in the
Yeah.
article, they specifically talk about a specific athlete who was a football player, and they asked him. They had him. Uh, however they approached it, they basically had him push the sled because they were intrigued by his. I think they call it low foot recovery. And
Yeah.
so was that similar to you as far as, as you mentioned, you were a track athlete? Was there anybody from the organization that approached you and said, "Hey, Will, like we want you. We see what you could potentially be in this sport"?
Well, there was two major shifts for me when it came to recruiting. The first one was I was training at BYU at the time. So I was probably the fastest American in the state of Utah at the time. And so they called me. NBC was holding a tryout for the 2002 Winter Olympics, and it was kind of like a feel good piece. But they had a bobsled driver who needed athletes, and so they called me, and eventually I did go to the tryout. And doing this tryout, like I set a new record on the tryout. And this guy offered me a crap load of money, which he didn't have. So he tricked me into the sport, to be very honest.
That was
And
NIL before NIL happened.
yeah, absolutely, absolutely. And at that time, the truth is, like, I owned a youth treatment facility. I had created the first ever independent living transitional housing program. So the state of Utah opened me as a pilot program. So that's what I was really doing in between, like, my track career phasing out and bobsledding starting out. So my first 2 years in bobsledding, I was running a company, my own company. So, and
Hmm.
then the second part that came, we were actually at the Olympic trials. I was on like USA number 6 or 5, or I don't know. And my bobsled driver, uh, we were pushing. We were like getting ready for the runs, right? And I pushed this guy, and then the women's coach came to me. She said, "Will, you pushed the sled by yourself. Your driver's not getting to the bar." I was like, "That's impossible. The times are too fast." And then that driver came to me. He said, "Hey, bro, hey, can you slow the sled down in the beginning and then try to pick it up as you go?" So I went to the Olympic coaches. I was like, "Listen, guys, I know we don't really have a relationship like this, but this driver, I don't want to say his name, I don't want to blast him or anything, but he asked me to slow the sled down in the beginning and to pick it up." And then they was like, "He's an effing idiot." That's what they told me. They said, "Matter of fact, you already have an automatic spot on the national team. You don't even have to help him in the Olympic trials. So you can help him if you want to, but you don't have to." And so that was the second thing that happened. Like, the first part was that tryout. And then about a year and a half later, when they saw me pushing at the Olympic trials, it was another shift. So that's really how I made it to the national team.
I'd imagine as you got into this, like at what point did you know you were actually like, oh yeah, I'm gonna be good. I'm gonna be him in the sport. And the reason why I asked that was because growing up, at least, I knew of bobsledding, but it wasn't something that I was like, oh yeah, like I could see myself one day doing that or even being interested in it. So playing in other sports, it's like, football, you pick up a football, take off
Yeah.
running, you juke some people, and it's like, okay, cool, I got this. Same thing on the track. You can't lie. The time doesn't lie. It's you either run this time or you don't. So at what point in your bobsledding career did you know, oh yeah, I can, these dudes don't have anything on me?
Well, actually, I really didn't know until I got to the first World Cup race. And here right now, I'm pushing with the higher ranked bobsled drivers. So they're faster, stronger. And so it was a practice day. Our first time I practiced, we pushed the sled. We were in St. Moritz, Switzerland, 2 man, pushed the sled. We went to the bottom of the track, came back up, and these guys were cheering me like, "Oh my God, are you coming back next year? What are you going?" And I was like, "What just happened?" I went from, "You guys didn't let me on your team," to all of a sudden at the Olympic trials, I pushed the sled by myself. Now at the first race, now I'm the guy. Like, it was really fast. It was pretty quick.
Hmm.
So it was really at my first World Cup race. Before that, they really make you feel like, before they make you, you don't get, there's a lot of clicks up there, put it that way. And so if you're not in the good old boys club, then, you don't get the support,
Hmm.
so that's kind of, yeah.
Yeah. transitioning, you know, so you've had this career as a bobsledder. You left the sport, and I know in some of the things that I've read, you know, CTE, the depression, the suicide, anxiety, all these things, and I've also read, you know, it can look similar to Parkinson's or dementia. Let's talk first about in the sport. So when you were actually competing in the sport, were there any indicators that you were experiencing some sort of head injury at the
Yeah.
time?
Yeah, man, they were there. I just didn't recognize them. I rationalized them. Like, for example, what was the first one? Oh, like we traveled a lot. So like sometime in the middle of the night, this wasn't even always doing the sports. I could be at home, but I had these little quick panic attack. Like I don't know where I'm at. So I'll jump up and hit the light switch. And like in Europe, they always have these creepy pictures on the wall, like the eyes, like the old Three Stooges TV shows, the eyes follow you. So I always say the pictures on the wall let me know where I'm at. And so one of the things is I never when I had those happening, like I rationalized. I was like, you know what? I'm representing my country. I'm traveling the world right now. And every 7 days a new country, that's why I don't know where I'm at. And so I just rationalized it. And then one time, I remember coming back to Salt Lake City to see some friends. I always kept a place there. And my buddy was looking at this lady and he was like, hey, that's your ex-girlfriend over there. And I looked over her. I said, I don't know her. I was like, she's pretty, but I don't know her. And then she ran over and jumped in my arms and I caught her. And I went, uh-oh, I guess I do know her. But, you know, as athletes, man, we think we're God's gift to women. And, you know, sometimes it's just, there was the truth of it. I own it. I own it. I was one of those guys as well. I just thought, you know, I got all these muscles and, you know, I'm just the guy, you know. But the truth was I was not recognizing familiar faces. And I just didn't know it. Like once again, rationalized it. And that continues to happen throughout the rest of my life. And I think I finally admitted it to people out loud after we filed the case, because now I had to start disclosing stuff to help other people. But before that, I wouldn't tell anybody. Matter of fact, every year I threw well, it's a bad word now, but we used to throw a Bill Cosby ugly sweater party every year with me, my guy from Warner Brothers, and my guy from Joe Silver's Pictures. They made all like the Matrix movies and stuff like that, Book Eli. And so we're throwing this party every year, and these executives are coming to my party. And I know these guys, but I just can't so I got this thing I do. I'm like, how are you? Hey, you know. So I never said names because I knew I didn't know the names. But I knew they knew me because they'll be persistent. They're still, you know, when you know somebody knows you, it's a different energy that's there. But I just got to the point where I couldn't recognize familiar faces.
So then transitioning, those red flags showed up in sport, and then, you know, once you retired, what was the rock bottom point for you after the sport? And I know you talked about it, and let me clarify. So when we talk about CTE, so chronic traumatic encephalopathy, which basically essentially you're having these micro brain traumas over a long period of time,
Yeah.
which then, you know, can lead into some of these things, anxiety, depression, etc. So what was the rock bottom point for you in all of this?
Probably when one of my teammates, see, before I made Team USA, I was doing the football movies you see on TV, like Jerry Maguire. And like they put uniform on me. I was a 4.23 40 guy, 4.23 standing start, 4.28 3-point stand. So like they put the uniforms on me and just let me run down the field to make it look like there was real athletes out there playing football. So that's what I was doing with Cuba and Tom and those guys. And so one of my teammates, he wanted to be a writer. So when I left Team USA, I moved to Los Angeles and I was writing. And so he would call me with these crazy stories, like the script ideas. And they were things I've never heard before. And so I was encouraging him and helping him, show him how to write the script and how to make it, make it marketable. So he would call me randomly. We talk about it. And this one particular day, he called me. He's speaking gibberish. He's going, he sounded just like a Rocky when one of the, I think it was like Rocky 3 or 4 when he couldn't talk. He was talking like that. But And it might even have been another language. I don't know. It was just bizarre. I just kept asking him, what? He got so frustrated. Eventually he just hung up on me, and because I used to own treatment facility and I cut my teeth working in facilities, I know mental health. And I knew this guy needed help. And I told myself every day, get him some help. But I didn't do anything. Like I was saying it to myself because nobody else was around me at that time. And eventually I got the word that he went to his family's factory and he hung himself. And when they checked his brain, he was in stage 4 of CTE. And that's why he couldn't talk.
Hmm. Wow.
So that was, and so I felt guilty. I felt responsible. And I think that's when I hit rock bottom right there.
Hmm. And did
Yeah.
that lead you to, because I know, there were multiple, the article that you sent me, Sledhead, I mean, there were numerous athletes named in that article who did complete suicide. What sort of impact, seeing some of your friends go through this and then completing suicide, did that have any impact on you and you, potentially considering just ending it all?
No, actually, their suicides probably saved me because, like, I was a counselor. I taught hundreds of people over the years. And I had a little thing that I used to teach them. Like, if suicide is a great idea today, it'll be a good idea tomorrow. So if today is Monday and I'm having problems and I get to Tuesday, now I keep repeating that. And it always moved the day for me. And so I always taught people that. And for me, it was on cruise control in my head. But when you're in this condition, there's a loop in your head. Like um, my loop was, it's time to go. You shouldn't be here any longer. Why are you still here? In this now, you know why your teammates did it. And so once I understood why they did it, and I can actually, like most time people commit suicide, you'd be like, oh, why they do that? But when I actually understood, I knew I was one step closer to maybe one day possibly doing it. But for me, I know the trauma, at least for the family. So I was making deals with God, like guys, I can't end this, Lord, but you can take me. That won't hurt my family. That trauma won't be left behind.
I want to pull from this article because there's several points in here, even researchers looking into CTE. So one quote from this article again, Sledhead. Brain experts who have studied these athletes say the symptoms most likely stem, at least in part, from years of enduring the notorious crashes, routine head banging, brain rattling vibrations, and strong gravitational acceleration forces that are common in their sport. So as I read that, I'm saying, okay, well, these experts have looked into this, but then you are suing the federation and they somewhat dismiss your claims.
Yeah.
What's it like just going through that process where you're like the studies and the research are there. These things are happening in our sport. You file this lawsuit and they're like, well, nah, we're not going to entertain. What's that process like?
Well, I knew they were going to do that, and that's why I hired lawyers. And so when they first came in with that, that went away pretty quick because there's a death trail here. There's a real death trail. Matter of fact, the suicides that you read about, there's more because there's so many more athletes reaching out like, hey man, I tried to take my life or I was going to, or there's so many more attempts. And so I know there's more suicides out there. We just not all the athletes, we aren't connected. But like it's baffling. And this is the most disturbing part. If you're going to be a bobsled coach now or working at bobsled office, more than likely you were a bobsledder before. So they're going through the same things the rest of us are going through. Matter of fact, when I saw what was going on, I put together a suicide, a non-suicide pact, and I told everybody to put me on speed dial, right? But I also asked to read. People ask people if you knew of athletes who were struggling, let me know. I'll see if I can reach out. And one of the people that they kept mentioning, like everybody mentions the same person, and that person was actually one of the head coaches. And so he's been going through a lot of struggles. They say he's like talking to an 80-year-old person now. And so for them to turn their back on the guys who took their life, because the guys who actually ended their life that they know about were like their best friends. Like we're like yeah, exactly that. Like I was always more of an outsider. I wasn't in a little clique with all of them. But inside that little clique, my driver from the World Championships, Stephen Holcomb, who actually took his life at the Olympic Training Center, He's won every Olympic medal that's been won in the men's side since 2003. That's him. He took his life at the training center. And like, instead of them trying to fix this sport, it's like, no, we're going to just keep rolling it. And so that's why I'm so adamant on the part about them wanting the new generation, because they're just doing business as usual. Matter of fact, I saw him on USA Today, all the Olympic stuff yesterday. And I'm like, man, we're still trying to get the people help who struggling. And here we go on to another Olympics. And so it's really disgusting. They're on the wrong side of history. And I'm just going to keep talking and expose them until I can't anymore. And that's all I can do. If they want one of generations, then I will.
Mm.
Yeah.
We had a conversation a couple of weeks ago, and I was sharing with you, my experience playing in sports, and I would I wouldn't be surprised if I've had close to 8 to 10 concussions from starting football when I was 9 years old to competing until I was 21 or 22 years old. And I
Wow.
remember there was a time where I had gotten a concussion during a football game and I was knocked out for at least a minute. And the only thing I remember is the guy standing over me from the previous or the opposing team handed me my mouthpiece and I was just looking up at him and I was so confused. And I got
Yeah.
up, everything was just spinning. I
Yeah.
dropped to my knee, tried to get back up, and then I was like, I can't cross the all the way across the field. So that was the first one. The other big one I remember in college where I was hit, and the hit was so hard. I was looking at the sky like I was in a dream, and
Oh, wow.
I was like, whoa. But I got
Yeah.
up and I wasn't dizzy. I wasn't none of the symptoms of my previous concussion. But you had mentioned you're like, yeah, you probably have more. And we talked about, some of the anxiety and the depression and the sleep symptoms, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah.
And you mentioned something intriguing to me. You're like, you familiar with hyperbaric chambers? I was like, I mean, I heard of them, but I didn't know they could help in that way. Can you speak a little bit more because that's part of the mission that you're on right now is getting people
Yeah.
exposure to these hyperbaric therapy chambers.
Well, before we go on to that, please remember that question. I wanted something you just said. You mentioned about you had that big concussion, right? And you couldn't cross the field. So when that happened, you were forced to not get back on that field, right?
Well, and that's a good question. So what happened was I went through that concussion happened. I remember the two trainers coming out on the field. They took a look at me, and I remember being carted off and went to the hospital. Here's the crazy part, Will. Craziest part ever is I was in the hospital. They released me and I went to see, I don't know if it was like a psychologist or a neurologist, but they took me through, I think it was 4 hours of testing. I'm sitting on this computer, punching these buttons. Okay, that's blue, that's red, that's a square, that's a circle. That was on a Thursday after the Friday night game previous.
Okay.
That following Friday, I was playing. I suited up and played.
Yeah.
Now, that knowing what I know now, I don't know if there should have been anybody who should have said, "Hey, you're good to go." A week after I had that brain injury. I mean, I'm
Exactly.
17 years old.
Yeah. Yeah. That was the kiss of death, I call them, when they send you back out like that. But the thing is, the difference between the big concussions, like you left the field that day and you didn't play for a few days, right? So you had a, but what about the times when you were colliding with those guys? It was a big hard collision, and then you go right back to the line and do it again.
Mm-hmm.
Or maybe it's fourth down and you come back in 4 plays and you're back out there. And so those are the ones that I believe are the most dangerous because that big one, it knocks you off the field. You left the field for some days and had some time to sit down. The other ones allow you to keep doing what you're doing. However, the damage to you is the same, but your body's not telling, it's not registering to your body that you're damaged so bad. So you can just keep doing it. So you're just doing more and more damage. It's like if somebody punctured your tire and you just keep driving on it's never going to get better now. It's you got to take that time away. And then also as an athlete, I'm sure you've had many injuries, right? Like hamstring pull.
Plenty.
That's all right. Let's focus on hamstring pull. You get a hamstring pull. First thing it does, all the blood rushes to that area, right?
Mm-hmm.
Right. So it gets there. It's to protect it. That's all. It's to protect you. It protects you. So how do you get that out of there? You first of all, you ice it to stop the bleeding. 72 hours. Then they got the thing rice or ice. rest, ice, compression, elevation, right? So you're doing that for a little bit. And then you go to the physical therapy part, which is they're going to do the ultrasound, electric stim, still icing it a little bit, heat, ice, alternate. Now, at the very end of that, at the Olympic Training Center, they give us this white rag. When we see the white rag come out, we're like, oh my goodness, we know what that is. They're going to make you bite it. Here, bite this. They're going to take that elbow and they're going to dig into that muscle and break the scar tissue up, right? Okay. So now that's for every injury you ever get on your body. That's going to happen muscle wise. Now, when you did the brain injury, what did you do to undo the damage?
Nothing.
Absolutely nothing. So for us, they told us to go back to the hotel and then watch each other and don't go to sleep for 3 hours. You know what? Me? How? I got vertigo. I can't sit up in the bed without throwing up. And one time my brakeman he was knocked unconscious. So which one of us is supposed to watch who? We just really can't. So that's kind of the stigma or the misconceptions about concussions. It's those little ones, they're just as deadly. And so they're talking about, safe age for football is 14. I really don't believe that now. Years ago, you probably would have convinced me. I would have believed it. Now I know better. Yeah.
I think if I had to do it all over again, I would have never played football. And I think it's some of it is just all the injuries, but the other part of it was, when I first started, I remember 9 years old. I remember after a football game having a headache.
Wow.
And there was no, pop some ibuprofen, get you some water, you'd be good. But there wasn't really any. At 9 years old, I remember
wow.
this. And it was pretty much the entirety of my junior football experience. Up until I think when I got into high school, I could have contact without getting headaches, which I don't know all of the ins and outs of that. But I think, as we talk about football, and is it fun to watch? Of course, it's exciting, it's entertaining, it's all the things.
Yeah.
But I always think about it, at what expense? In these contact sports, similar to bobsledding, at what expense, we're competing and getting all the praise and all of these things. But at the end of the day, 10 years, 15 years removed sometimes from the sport, it's like, okay, here comes the depression, here comes the anxiety, here comes the sleepless nights, and it just manifests into being dysregulated human beings. And some of the article that I was reading was talking about a specific guy who, I think you'd referred to him, showed up at the shop and just kind of went off on his brother. And I was just like, And this person had never been in trouble and never displayed some of these behaviors before. And so I think about myself, I'm like, sleepless nights. Okay. The anxiety is there, some depression like symptoms. I'm like, and you pointed it out, you're like, yeah, those are all the signs. So to say all of that, you had mentioned the hyperbaric chamber.
Absolutely.
Hyperbaric therapy. Can you speak a little bit more about that and your mission with what you're trying to do?
Yep. By the way, if I move to this way, that's my chamber right behind me. That's the thing that saved my life. Man, when I was trying to find help, like there was nothing out there. Like doctors will dismiss you. They won't even see you when they don't understand what you have. That's been my experience. They always tell you go find a specialist. Well, there aren't any. But Joe Namath said he used hyperbaric oxygen to reverse his CTE symptoms. And so he didn't leave details or anything, but I wanted to try it. And I was a skeptic. I didn't think it was going to work because I tried everything under the sun that was suggested. And man, I was in that chamber for 1 hour. And when I came out, man, it was like I was walking around in 3D. Like I realized I probably hadn't been seeing colors very, very vividly in a long time, which I didn't know. And so my glasses were slightly tinted because I'm sensitive to lights, smells, and sounds now. But the salesman kept seeing me take my glasses off. I'm just like outside looking like out the window, like, what the hell is this place? I'm not recognizing anything. And he comes up to me. He asked me, hey, what's wrong? And I was like, I don't know. I don't think I need my glasses. And he's like, oh, you're one of those. And I was like, okay, he's going to sell me this machine. That's what he up to. Now, I just bought a house. I don't have 25 grand laying around. But the truth is, he's right, man. Some people get kind of immediate relief. And then some people need like 60 sessions within like 30-day period, like 2 a day to get the same type of relief. And man, it's just changed my life ever since. And so I've been on a journey. I'm in the process of opening up a first ever free CTE wellness post-concussion center. So athletes and our veterans can come there and just get free help because it's so expensive. Like if you need, just think if you need 60 sessions in 30 days, it's going to cost you $200 a pop. It's going to price most of us out. So we're not going to get the treatment. And, but if I have the machines, all I got to do is turn it on. It's simple. I go in there, you take a nap. Remember, when you get on the plane, you got to pop your ears a couple times. Mm-hmm. That's all you have to do is clear your ears until you get the pressure. And then when I first started, I was so weak. As soon as I got in there and cleared my ears, I went to sleep. I couldn't even keep my eyes open. Now I'm in there doing puzzles and watching movies. But when I first started, man, and then matter of fact, when my buddy called me that time and he was speaking gibberish, the truth was when he was, I caught myself trying to help this guy, right? I kept telling myself that. And when I felt so guilty, like I didn't really release that guilt until I realized I needed help too. Like I didn't know how bad off that I was. And that's how sneaky this thing is. Like I thought I was getting diabetes or something because I had felt like low blood sugar, even though doctors kept telling me I was wrong. I even bought a blood meter. I'm checking my blood glucose every time I eat. The science has said I don't have it, but my brain is telling me it has to be this because I've seen diabetics go through this many times. It feels like this is what I'm going through. So I began to live off, most athletes, when they leave the sport like this, they live off of monster drinks, caffeine, coffee. And I was no different. I was living off of black coffee, which I hate to taste. And I never drank soda. I didn't even let my kids drink soda. But here I am living off of it. And just to try to make it through. Matter of fact, that was my self-medication, was caffeine. Yeah.
Wow.
But that chamber, man, it's the real deal. Yeah.
I want you to, towards the end, we'll talk a little bit more of the chamber and your nonprofit, but I want to transition to the experience, kind of coming back to your experience with Team USA. Because we talked a little bit about the racial dynamics during that time. How did the racial dynamics then impact your mental health and your mental performance?
Well, I can't say that it impacted my performance because I'm always gonna, do the best that I can. But I tell you what, like there was times where, like, to get on the sled, sometimes you do what we call a race off. Like one athlete competes against another one. There was times where I could win by 2/10 and still not get on that sled and race. And so that part was always disturbing. Matter of fact, when I left the sport, I never really talked about the racial component because I was embarrassed that I allowed them to do that to me for 9 years of that stuff. Yeah, like when I left the sport, I just tucked it behind me and I never really, like, people like, oh, you're the guy. And like, yeah, I wasn't always proud because of that part of experience. But actually in 2022, there's like things that I'm saying right now. It's there's a paper trail somewhere at the USOC. I made complaints about some of this stuff, but eventually a Black athlete told me, he said, whenever he spoke up, it just got worse and worse and worse. And so eventually I just stopped filing the reports. And, but they just got audited in 2022. I don't know if it's my case that kicked off the audit, but inside the audit, it actually mentions the good old boy system, which is ironic because on my first day at Lake Placid, this guy came up to me and he said, hey, Will, it's still the good old boy system here, but it's getting better. And I didn't believe him because at that time, man, my girlfriend, she was like the number 5 hurdler in the world for Germany. I'm traveling with the Germans. Like, I shower in a ladies' locker room. Like, what do you mean there's still racism in America? Like on our Olympic team, I didn't believe it, And I quickly found out, like, he was right and he warned me. And it took a while to really sink in, But yeah, so they did an external audit and it mentioned good old boy system. A new audit just came out, an updated audit came out 6 months ago, I believe. It still mentions good old boy system. Those are the words, like not my words, these are their words. So all those things I complained about are still there. And yeah, what do you do about it? I don't know. I have no idea.
Did that experience have any impact mentally for you? Like,
I'm sure it did. Like, I mean, when you're better than somebody, like there was one time we had training camp in Canada. We're in Canada. It happened to me twice with these guys. So I'm in Canada on day number 1. I have the fastest push time. On day number 2, I have the fastest push time. On day number 3, the assistant coach came to me. He said, "Hey, Will, the coach then was Tuffy." He said, "Tuffy said, you can't push with the national team now." And I was like, "Why not?" He said, "Well, because you got a car accident last year, and so you didn't have any international races." I said, "Okay, that's the only reason." He said, "Yeah." I said, "Well, go back and check your records," because I came back after that and I had at least 10. But they still kicked me out and they made me practice with the women. So that kind of stuff, yeah, it happened. And it was, you know, and there was another occasion in the World Championships when I was pushing Stephen Holcomb. He took his life at the training center as well. And we all won these cell phones from Verizon. Like a lot of my clothes still have Verizon logos on them. And so we had the same phone number, one digit off. So one day, we pushed. Let me slow down a little bit. We raced in the World Championship, so I'm the number 1 or number 2 brakeman in the country at the time. There's nobody above me. I'm right there. I'm either 1 or 2, either one. And so it's time for camp in Canada. I call in, the coaches they're not funding me. I'm like, what? How could you not? Like, oh man. So I funded myself. So Stephen Holcomb said, "Hey man, I got a room." He's a WCAP military athlete. He said, I got a suite, you can stay with me. I said, okay. So I go up there. About 3 or 4 days later, I get a message. One of the drivers come to me. He says, "Hey, Will, Tuffy called and he said, when the Federation moves us to a new hotel, they're going to pick up the tab and you won't have a room. So you got to figure something out." I was like, so I called the coach. He didn't answer. Called a couple more times. He didn't answer. A few days later, I get that same message from the guy, and the guy was like, "Hey man, I feel like I'm in the middle of this. I don't know why he's calling me to tell you this." He said, "But this is what he said." So I called from my phone. He didn't answer. I called from the other guy's phone. He picks up on the first ring, and I'm like, "Huh." And I say, "Tuffy, what's going on, brother?" And he's like, "Well, each driver only gets one funded push athlete." And I said, "Tuffy, I've been here for 2 weeks. I know the truth. Is that the story you sticking to?" And he just got kind of quiet. He's like, "Oh, I see what I can do. I'll see what I can do." And a few weeks later, we moved to the new hotel. They give me a room. I got a new roommate. I saw that guy the year before. He was the guy, like he was a track worker. He was the one like shaving the ice and he wiped our sleds down, things like that. And I said, "Was your airline ticket expensive to get up here? Because you got it kind of last minute." He was like, "No." He said, "I went to the first training camp and I finished last." He said, "Then I got injured. And so I'm laying around at the Olympic Training Center. And Tuffy came to me and asked me if I wanted to go to Canada. He was going to pay for it." He said, "Hell, what have I got to lose?" And I'm just thinking, this mother. And so those are the things that I dealt with. And, those things hurt your soul, man, because they do. They really do. They hurt your soul. That's why when I left the sport for years, I didn't speak of bobsledding. People were introducing me as the bobsled champion. And I just I just wanted to tuck that part of my life away and just, bury it. And that's really the truth of it. But one more piece of that, they treated me so bad. Like, and this CTE is so unforgiving. Like, it literally wiped my memory of what they did to me for 9 years. That it took a white athlete to remind me, who saw it happening. Like, when I filed the case, I didn't remember. I was like, yeah, I just now also all the memories started coming back. I'm like, oh, 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 ew. These people again. Like, how did I get here? Like, yeah, man. So yeah.
I think that's the experience of a lot of us athletes who look like me and you. Whether it be the goalpost gets moved, you see that currently right now with specific athletes.
Yeah.
We know them. We know when the goalpost gets moved, or it's, well, it looks like you met this time, but it's just not good enough yet. And you're just like,
Yeah.
what more do I need to do? Which I like the way you worded it. It sucks your soul. It sucks everything out of you because you've worked so hard to get to a specific point, and when you get there and deep down, like, you've done everything, you've done the training, you've kept your body right, etc., and you get there, you made the time, and it's like, no. And you're just like,
Yeah.
what do you mean? Like, are we looking at the same paper? Are we looking at the same
Yeah.
stopwatch?
Yeah.
So I think, I'm happy that you shared that because, similar. I've had those experiences too, and it's just kind of like we figure out different ways to get around some of that stuff, but there are some situations where it's just kind of like there are gatekeepers, unfortunately, and those gatekeepers will sometimes do anything in their power to keep one from getting to where they want to go.
Yeah.
So as we wind down this conversation, we've talked a little bit about your experiences with Team USA, CTE, concussions, mental health, and then specifically with the hyperbaric therapy and your racial issues within the sport. Everything that you're doing now, specifically with the lawsuit with the U.S. Bobsledding Federation, when this is all said and done, what does justice look like for you?
I don't think there's no way to bring back the people who lost their lives, and the way we've been have to live. There's no way. There will never be justice. Um, but what I can do is stop the bleeding for that next generation, so they don't feel like they need justice. That's really what it's about for me. Matter of fact, the irony of this is all the white athletes who watch them do these things to the black athletes. I'm now back here fighting for them too, equally. You know, and so it's a humbling thing, very humbling. I don't think there's justice will ever come. It's, yeah,
Well, I appreciate you in the work that you do. I appreciate our conversation, not only today, but our previous one, because you
yeah,
opened my eyes up and made me think about, how have my brain injuries impacted me? And, how can hyperbaric chambers help with some of the symptoms that I've now experienced in my own life? But I also appreciate you just for the fight you're up against. I can tell that deep down inside you want other people to have successful careers in this sport, and a lot of the athletes aren't getting the information that they need to make those informed decisions on whether to continue or, hey, let me take a step back. So I
yeah,
just want to thank you for all the work that you're doing. In addition to that, you have created a nonprofit, as you mentioned earlier. Where
yeah.
can people find that information at? And if they're interested in seeking out some sort of treatment, how they go about that?
First of all, first of all, if you need to find me, actually, this thing is so it's invisible. Like athletes, just like yourself, like the talks we had, you won't see it on yourself until somebody goes, "Hey, ding, 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 ding." I was the same way. I know we didn't really go over that part of the story, but like your loved ones is the ones. So I have a TikTok channel dedicated just for loved ones to come there and get help for for their friend, their loved ones. So you can find me there, one man with a chamber. My name Will Person. Everybody's a person, Person. Just Google me. You can find me. I'm social media everywhere. I'll help you. I'll help you not step through in the potholes that I stepped in. And then if you need help, like right now, I'm actually there's people I'm helping people all the time now. Like that's but the goal is to open up the facility where I can help masses of people. Like matter of fact, I think it's a chamber company just stepped to the table yesterday. Had a like 2.5 hour conversation. So I already have the building where we want to open at. I have a crowdfunding out there. Please find it. One man with a chamber. Donate to it. And the goal is to really just start treating the athletes, but also our military veterans. Like there was a military mass shooter who went up to the NFL office to shoot it. Did you see that he left the CTE?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so that that report came out. He actually had it. He was right. So I made my TikTok channel was going crazy. My phone was ringing because somehow the internet made me the CTE guru, which I'm not. I'm just a guy who kind of found a way to get out of this because of Joe Namath. I can't take the credit. So I make this video. So go on my TikTok channel and fact check me. I said, guys, we have athletes taking their lives, they're killing their loved ones. I said, I understand that, but I said, that's not the population I fear. The population I fear is our military. They have the same condition. They're taking their lives at a really alarming rate as well, but they're also killing people. I said, we're going to have a wave, was what I said, a wave of mass military shootings coming. So I made the video, put it out there. The next day, I spoke to the judge about it. And then I made this same thing I said to you. I said on the courthouse steps to some people that were there. And then after that was over, 4 or 5 days later, there's a guy who went to a bar in Anaconda, Montana. He shot 4 people, ran off hiding in the woods like Rambo. That just happened. It was less than 5 days after I put the video out. The following week, a military guy went on the base and he shot up some of the people on his base. Then 2 weeks after that, another veteran went to a Mormon church in Minnesota. He set part of it on fire. He went to the other half and started just firing. So even when they stopped him, there was bodies missing. So I'm pretty sure they probably perished in that fire. But I just said it's something we have to get ahead of because we live in a country where you can go to elementary school and get shot. You can go to high school and get shot. You can go to the concert and worry about getting shot. Church, and so a lot of these things are really, I believe, undiagnosed head injuries because we just talked about this. They don't treat head injuries in America. Unless your skull opens up, they don't do anything. They just tell you, go sit down somewhere and don't go to sleep for the 3 hours. That's the treatment. So
ineffective treatment.
Yeah, ineffective treatment. Yeah. Yes. Yeah.
One man with a chamber. Will, I appreciate you for coming on and sharing your story.
Yeah, please, guys, run to that crowdfunding, guys. It's moving really slow right now. I have investors. I mean, they're blowing my phone up. They want me to open right now. But if I take their money, I'm going to have to charge. I do not want, this has to be a free service. I'm donating the building myself. I'm going to pay for that myself. I need help with building it out and getting all the equipment in. And the rest, I'm going to open it up, and we're going to treat everybody. And I don't want to turn anyone away. So if we have not just football or, those sports, but we got the housewife who fell and hit her head, who needs help. Now she's doing erratic behaviors now, and people don't think she's lost her mind. No, she had a concussion that was never treated. Yeah. And we just got to get ahead of this. And it's simple. 1 hour. I was 1 hour in the chamber, changed my life. It's that simple.
Well, I definitely appreciate you.
Appreciate you.